Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I've got a full review to do for you on the Microtech l.u.d.t, Large Underwater Demolition Team. I don't know anybody who performs demolition jobs underwater. I guess according to this knife, that is a thing. No judgment if that's what you do, but the way I see this knife is actually that it's a Microtech EDC automatic, because this knife to me feels like it's one of their best cases for being a realistic and usable EDC knife that's also an auto. Microtech makes a couple of manual models that I'm going to be trying a SOCOM Elite here very soon. And then I also want to try a Sigil soon. I've almost bought one a couple of times. Maybe I'll just get one of those soon because I think they look awesome too. But this being an automatic and me being in California, that plays a role in how much I'm going to want one of these. But overall, I'm really impressed with this knife. It's one of those models that I'd heard high praises of for a very long time. And there's a lot of knives out there that I hear very good things about that take me a long time to experience, if I ever even do. There are so many knives that already exist, and there's constantly new knives coming out to try. So I don't have unlimited resources to just purchase any and everything. And even if I did, I wouldn't be able to give everything a real shot of having it in pocket and carrying it and using it if I was buying so much stuff. So this is one of those that for years I've been curious about, but it's never been top of my list enough to really buy one. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I talked about this a little bit in the first impressions, but the looks, I struggle with. Watch that video if you want me to break it down for you. But the way that this blade comes up a little bit compared to the frame, and then you've got these like legs down here, like a Spyderco counter puppy kitchen knife or whatever they call them, where it like sits up. I don't love aesthetically the angles and dimensions of this, but what I do kind of love is the ergos. This knife ergonomically is really, really good. Before I get any further too, I should say this is one of the knives that I borrowed from my buddy YD Knives. His link is going to be down in the description below to his Instagram. Give him a follow. Super cool dude, great knives. He's lent me 2 batches of a couple of knives now, and he's already planning on sending me more. So he's a huge help to the channel. Give him some support. Anyway, ergos. This knife has this taper where it's thickest at the top of the handle and thinnest down at the bottom. And it's also, this groove here, for my hand, is excellent. There's not extra space there. There's not too little space. My fingers don't feel like they're squeezed in into an uncomfortable position, but they also don't have any room to move around. So it's really locked in forward and back. There's like no give on this knife. Feels really good. The jimping comes up pretty far up this spine, which is rounded, and I love rounded spines. I really appreciate when people do that. It just feels better to me. So it's got good, subtle jimping on a rounded spine, little bit of a jimping spot here, which I guess if I'm like in an aggressive saber grip, that's nice too. On the butt of the knife, there's a little bit of jimping here, which in a reverse grip is nice. And then the only other jimping spots are here and here, and neither of those I really even feel that much, but maybe they are contributing to me feeling ultra locked in here. So the jimping is good on this knife. The profile of the handle, the material, this being just anodized aluminum and having these grooves in it, it's the right amount of grippy without being aggressive. I like it. It feels good in hand. The clip, I can feel just this very notch, just the very end of it. I can feel it in my hand. I wouldn't call it a hot spot. It's not really bothering me, but that's the spot that I can tell that the clip is there. The rest of the clip, frankly, kind of disappears. I don't feel it. So ergos are great. Jimping is great. Spine of the blade is great. The rest of the blade is also great. This particular one is the partially serrated one. I'm not a serrations kind of guy. I get the utility of them. It's not my preference. So take or leave the serrations in this portion, because if I were picking this knife, I would get it in the plain edge. But either way, whether you get serrated or plain edge, the thinness behind the edge on this knife is one of the thinnest production folding knives I've ever felt. It's really thin behind the edge, and they put a great edge on it. It's a very slicey, very sharp blade. And yeah, I don't know, it's just really, really well done grind-wise. To get it that thin, I don't know. It doesn't feel so thin that I'm like worried about the structural integrity of it, but it's weird because this knife, being a Microtech, you almost kind of assume it's a tactical knife. But a lot of tactical knives are like pretty thick behind the edge and are more like piercing instruments that can cut. And this feels like it's really EDC focused, which is hilarious that it's called the Underwater Demolition Team. And it's like the sliciest, best box cutter that they make. I don't know. It's weird to me. Microtech, they're interesting in some of their design choices and decisions and naming. But I really like Microtech as a whole. I've owned several. I've owned a couple of OTFs at this point, Combat Troodon and an Ultratech Hellhound Bounty Hunter, which was like super rad. And then what else have I had? I've had the Borka fixed blade, the SBD dagger. I don't know if I've owned anything else. But all of their knives that I've owned have been high quality. Their OTFs are fun, although I don't find them that functional as like actual EDC knives. Whereas this, being an out the side auto and having ergos like this and a grind like this, a point like this, like it seems very functional to me. I've done very light cutting with this and it's been an excellent slicer. Again, I'd prefer to not have the serrations there, but it's really, really good at cutting and it's comfortable in pocket. The ergos are excellent. It's funny to me that it's named this and that I don't know. If they could just tweak the angle of this blade a little bit so the edge came down to here, I might feel like I need to have one. I think part of why I just don't love this knife like I want to and like I should with its performance is really that weird like uptick that it's got there with the blade coming out with this little ramp. It kind of bothers me a little bit. I think that's also, I was thinking about it after, I think it's part of why I've never owned an Ontario rat, any of the rats, because they do the same thing and I don't like that. I don't like aesthetically that weird angle there. Functionally it's fine. It doesn't do anything negative to the performance of the knife, but I don't know. It's interesting. It's one of those weird knives for me where like I like it for so many reasons, but coming out of spending a week with it, I guess it's been a little over a week now, and appreciate your patience, YD Knives, but I don't feel like I want one at the end of it is really what it comes down to. Part of it is that it's an auto, and so I inherently have to worry a little bit about carrying autos in California, although let's be honest, every now and then I slip out of the house with one in my pocket. But it's just like, it's not ideal. Plus, I talked about this in my first impressions, I prefer actions on manual knives if they're well done. Like right now, I have a ProTech Malibu, the reverse Tanto, and it is a button lock flipper, aluminum scales. Like the construction of it is very similar to this, except instead of an auto, it has a flipper tab. And you have to do the work by pushing here, but it's still a button lock. And the detent on it is stupid crisp. It deploys reliably. And then when I go to close it, all I do is press the button and let it drop. This one, that doesn't happen. You have to, like, if I want to one-hand close this, I have to get it to right there where it's just past the lock and the spring hasn't quite pushed it closed yet. And then I have to put my hand in this like little bit of an awkward position and I have to press firmly all the way to shut. And I have to fight the spring the whole way along. And closing this knife, in my opinion, it's just not fun at all. Part of a good action to me on a knife that I'd say has a fun action is not just opening, but it's closing as well. Is there something special and inherently cool about an auto? Yes. That snap, the thwack, the feeling of authority with which it comes out, like, it's cool. And it can be kind of addictive. And when I don't have an auto in my collection, I almost always get the itch for one eventually, and it's like, I want to have an auto again. So I get that. But I just, for actual pulling a knife out of my pocket and like playing with it long term, having a knife long term, I never seem to have autos for that long term. After a while, the honeymoon phase wears off, and it's like even a really fun OTF, even my Ultratech Bounty Hunter Hellhound, which is like, in my opinion, one of the coolest Microtechs you can get, which has a fantastic OTF action. It's fun for a while, and it never gets uncool. It's never like, oh, that's a bummer to play with, but it stops being so exciting after a while. And yeah, if they made this as a manual, it was still ground this well, I might be able to get over the weird aesthetic thing that bugs probably just me. But it being a manual as well on top of that, I don't know. I love how slicey it is. I love the ergos. I like how functional it is, especially for a Microtech, because I think a lot of Microtechs are too tactical for the average person. But I don't come away from this feeling like I need to have one. So my final review is that it's a very good knife. It's very well made. The quality on it is excellent. There's nothing functionally wrong with this. In fact, a lot of this knife is superior to many other knives. This grind is seriously one of the best that I've experienced. It's so thin and slicey behind the edge. It's got a nice rounded spine. The jimping is well done. The ergos are great. Like, the whole list, everything is good. But I don't love the way it looks, which, call me shallow. That's important to me on a knife. And it's an auto, and so it makes me want it less. It's not that I won't own autos. I will, and some of them are a lot of fun. And this one is fun to deploy. It's a great action for an auto, but I don't know. I'm intrigued now, especially to try the SOCOM Elite. And YD Knives is actually sending me, I think, more than one to check out. And so I'm excited to see how a good manual Microtech does, especially because I've heard those are also ground exceptionally well. It's a way bigger knife, totally different ergos, tip down only, very different than this. If this was a manual, I think it would be the better size and weight for me compared to the SOCOM, but we'll see. I'm excited to, after just freshly having this, have one or more of those to check out and see where it leads me. But I guess that's going to have to be it on this one. It's really nice. I would never, if someone was like, should I buy a Microtech LUDT? I would never say no. If this is a style that you like, if you like the aesthetics of it and you enjoy autos, then this is one of the better autos I've ever experienced for actual EDC use. I would have no hesitation to recommend this as a great knife to somebody. Functionally, it's fantastic. It's just not totally my style and my flavor, and maybe one day I'll change and I'll decide I do like the looks of it, or I'll find one in a spec that's just makes it look so much extra that I really want one. But for the moment, I'm just going to kind of pass on this one. It's nice though. So there you have it. That'll be the Microtech Large Underwater Demolition Team full review.